You heard the music. That means it's 9 o'clock, and that means it's time for the live zone.
Another week.
I'm producer Chris. This is Tony P. It is Monday, and it has been a very busy weekend in the news.
Very emotional one.
It has been a very, like you said, a very emotional.
Very tough one.
And we're going to cover it all. We're also going to have all your other Tony's rundown.
Of course.
We're going to talk about the Commanders. We're going to talk about all kinds of things.
Cover it slowly.
Yeah, so thank you to everyone who's watching right now on Fox Local, everyone who's watching on Fox 5 DC's YouTube page or fox5dc.com. If you guys know, if you've watched the show before, you know if something's live and it's happening now, we're bringing it to you. So we're going to take you right to Bondi Beach, to Sydney, Australia. That is where we are standing by for a live update on the mass shooting that occurred over the weekend. This update is supposed to be from the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, the Minister for Police and Counter-Terrorism Yasmin Catley, the Minister for Mental Health Rose Jackson, the New South Wales Police Commissioner, Chief Psychiatrist for New South Wales Health, several others. This obviously follows that mass shooting targeting a Hanukkah celebration that left at least 15 people dead on Sunday and many, many more injured. Authorities in Australia earlier today said that they will soon charge the surviving suspect in that massacre. The father and son opened fire on Jewish Australians on Bondi Beach, killing at least 15, like I said, injured dozens of others. The victims were there celebrating the first night of Hanukkah. The other gunman was shot and killed. Australia's Prime Minister strongly condemned the anti-Semitism and terrorism and says the country may take a look at tightening already strict gun laws there, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, again, one of the strictest gun laws in the world, and it took place after a 1996 mass shooting. Right after that, they tightened. You could no longer have semi-automatic weapons or assault weapons for individual use. Now, what the Albanese government is looking at a potential even stricter gun law to say, look, you know, the amount of guns you should have legally needs to go down because the two terrorists that were engaged in this, the father, he had 6 guns that he had purchased legally since 2015, and he had a license to carry legally in Australia since 2015. And so they're looking at potentially not just restricting or having a cap on how many guns you can have, but there are some members of the parliament who have been saying, anybody besides farmers do you really need to have guns in Australia? And so we could potentially see a full-on ban of all types of handguns and weapons in Australia, you know, from legally, of course, as well as any type of gun show buying or illegal transactions. So it's something that this horrific, you know, attack that took 15, you know, beautiful lives, and then, you know, 40 plus injured, and we are still right now there are many still in critical condition.
Yeah.
And so this is far from over, this incredible tragedy. And it opens up a conversation about multiple things. Again, you know, this is, you know, gun violence happening, you know, mixing with, you know, the rising anti-Semitism, not just in Australia, which we have seen in, you know, Australian media that's been covered. There's been a rise of anti-Semitism, but also here in the United States, where it is dovetailing that, and we're seeing it on both sides of the political aisle. And these are issues that are now going to be at the forefront, as they should be, because of this absolute tragedy that happened over the weekend.
Yeah, and we've seen stepped up police presence and security at synagogues and other Jewish day schools all
for Hanukkah
across the
celebrations
country.
too.
Obviously tonight, the second night of Hanukkah
Yep.
here in the United States. We heard this press conference is supposed to be getting underway around 1 o'clock. Obviously, time difference, it's about 1:04 right now in Sydney, Australia. So we are going to keep our eyes on this in the meantime. You saw the photographers hoist the cameras up on their shoulders. Tony, while we're standing by for this, waiting to see if it gets underway, talk to me a little bit about the hero of that shooting, because he is getting a lot of attention worldwide and also some major money raised for him.
He absolutely is. Ahmed al-Ahmed, the Muslim man and hero who took on one of the terrorist suspects and with no gun, wrestled the gun away from him and prevented God knows how many lives, and prevented them from being hurt or killed and from being saved, basically. And again, his name is Ahmed al-Ahmed. He is a Muslim fruit shop owner and is being hailed as a hero. Of course, he was doing some work on Bondi Beach as just selling fruit, doing things of that nature, and saw what was going on and sprung into action. And he is 43 years old. He is a father of 2, and he is also he's a father of 2 whose parents recently arrived from Syria as refugees as well. Of course, we've had the governmental change since the Assad regime fell. Ahmed al-Ahmed's parents were 2 refugees to Australia from Syria, just to make sure that was clear on that one. And Ahmed was shot twice during the struggle, once in the arm and once in the hand during that struggle, and underwent surgery on Sunday night. He is out of surgery and in recovery as we speak. There's been members of the Australian government and Parliament that have visited him in the hospital, and he is getting praise from around the world. Australian Prime Minister Albanese called his actions the best of humanity. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu praised the Muslim brave man who stopped a terrorist. And now a GoFundMe campaign for Ahmed is already in the process. It's been a kind of a amalgamation of influencers that do a lot of these, I would say, very uplifting and very like the best of humanity type content, the best way I can describe it. It's with them, business leaders, individual donors, and that GoFundMe campaign has raised up to $1.4 million in just one day for Mr. Ahmed, with billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman contributing nearly $67,000. And also New South Wales Premier Chris Minns, who we'll also hear from in this press conference, visited Ahmed in the hospital and said there's no doubt that there are many, many people alive tonight because of his bravery. And just when you look at that, like, and we talk, there was a lot of
and we know that a lot of these videos have been circulating on social media. Just, they haven't all been cleared. So I know that you know what videos we are talking about. If you have been on social media, but we're just not showing those.
No, of course. And again, also just for the graphic nature of this. This is a very graphic. Nobody needs to see that violence. Nobody needs to see what went down, but also the incredible heroism of Mr. Ahmed is something that when we look at, humanity, and, there's a lot of content going on social media about how, like, this is how you protect and serve people. And everybody, across the spectrum, men, women, everybody has that vision of what would you do in that situation if, everybody, we kind of think about, okay, I would save that person, I would go in, and we don't know what we would do. And he sprung into action. And his own father was interviewed by the Australian media and said, my son's a hero. He saw danger and he stepped in. And that just tells you an incredible human being that he is. And you can just, again, incredible family that has raised him. His parents have gone through incredible strife over in Syria with the governmental change and all that chaos. And this man is the best of humanity. And his heart is a thing that we definitely should learn from. And sorry if I'm so, emotional or very poetic in my language.
Unfortunately, that was not the only mass shooting that we were following over the weekend. So you see in the bottom corner, we have that podium up there. We will keep an eye on it. When the officials go to that podium and start speaking, we will bring it to you. But in the meantime, we do want to talk about Providence, Rhode Island now, because that was where the other shooting that we were following this weekend occurred. Police in Providence, Rhode Island say they are still searching for the gunman who opened fire on a classroom at Brown University. But today, police released several new videos they say shows a person of interest in the attack. That's what you're looking at on the other side of the screen there. It's not the best video in the world, but you see someone dressed in all black walking down the sidewalk. That attack left 2 people dead and several others hurt. One of those victims, though, had Virginia ties, and that's what we want to talk about now. Muhammad Aziz Zokov graduated from Midlothian High School in Chesterfield County. That's near Richmond.
Yep.
Governor Glenn Youngkin offered his condolences, saying he's praying for the victims of this horrendous act of evil. A GoFundMe page to help his family, raising more than $300,000 at last check. That was earlier this afternoon. The other victim, a 19-year-old named Ella Cook. She's from Alabama. Providence police are working with the FBI to find the shooter. Classes and exams at Brown have been canceled for the rest of the semester. Earlier tonight, though, Jim Loke, Fox 5's Jim Loke, spoke to Luca Guathemi. He's an Alexandria City High School grad who's studying econ at Brown. He described the moments after the shooting and how the campus community is coming together. I do want to play a portion of that for you. If that press conference gets underway, we'll break in and bring it to you. But in the meantime, take a listen.
I know people were running around, running away from where it occurred. Some people thinking like, are you joking right now? Like, what do you mean there's a shooting? Again, especially at Brown, I know as many people have touched on over the past couple days, this campus is such a safe haven for us. And especially Rhode Island just as a state, like it is so inconceivable that this would happen here. And so I think it was just a lot of disbelief and has continued to be that. I would say students did a pretty good job of sharing information. We have Side Chat, which is like an app specific to colleges, and then we have a Brown specific kind of page on that where people were sending out notifications and texts, and I'm sure that saved dozens of lives. And so there was a lot of community during that moment, but very, very scary, and very scary texting people who might not have had their phones as well.
And it's tough. I mean, mention that just about the community, that it's really sad that it's this that in many cases brings people together. And yeah, you're all looking out for each other in times like these. But the reality is, I mean, you're part of a generation that you've had to deal with I would assume over time drills and learning what to do in situations like these.
Yeah, it's pretty horrific. It is good that many of us have had training since probably elementary school. I know I haven't, at least. And so in that respect, it's good. People know you barricade, you turn off your phones, you turn off the lights, you close the windows. And so in terms of safety, that's good. But the fact that that is even necessary and that training is going to continue to be just imperative for our generations and future generations to come's safety is scary and sad for me.
So you can catch more of Jim's interview tonight at 11:30 on the Final Five. And Tony P., I mean, you know, like he said, so many of these students have had to live with this for so long that it's never routine, it's never normal, but this is the sort of thing that they have to prepare for and they have trained for almost their entire lives at this point.
Right. I mean, let's not forget, just a couple of days ago was the anniversary for Sandy Hook. I mean, when we think about this occasion since 1999, and Columbine has become a regular occasion, if not multiple times a year. We saw it with Sandy Hook. We saw it with Newtown, Sandy Hook is Newtown, Connecticut. We saw it at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida just 5-6 years ago when I was in college. And these students, this has been just a part of their vernacular, a part of, you know, what they go through in orientation and not only that, but it's always on the back of students' mind. As someone who was part of that generation, it was always on our mind. We always had drills in college and high school, made sure that, you know, what to look for on a campus. I went to a high school with a campus and a college with a campus. Always looking out, what to look for. Like that was always in the back of our minds. Even if it wasn't present, it was always there. And for students, especially who have now experienced it, it pains me that I have to say it like that because they have experienced it now. That, you know, is that no longer a safe haven for them, where they can't exist, they can't form friendships, they can't learn, they can't study? I mean, doing finals and on a weekend day and
on a weekend, a study group,
right? And we just like think about, you know, the members, you know, of that community that are hurting right now. You know, one of the victims, and I not the victim, but one of the folks that was on campus. I'll confirm this, was actually went to high school at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. So
I heard that
I mean,
as well.
so like
So
think about that impact.
surviving one
Surviving
tragedy.
one, having to like go through another. I mean, because it's so present and is so part of the American society or world society where this is now a thing, and we're still not doing any action on it. And again, you look at Australia, they're already moving on things with gun violence, gun control. We're still lagging way behind Australia. And so like it's just seeing, you know, what's going on is just truly a tragedy. Again, like having to experience that in those moments when you're studying with your friends, you're doing study group, and it just, I've never seen anything like this back to back, where you see tragedy,
Unfortunately,
and then you have 15 beautiful, you know, Jewish souls that are taken from us. Like, it's like, this is, there's no words to describe it because you don't exactly know, like, what do you do about this?
yeah. So
Plus everything else that happened too.
Yeah, and we are still standing by, coming up on 9:15 here,
Yep.
East Coast time. You see down at the bottom corner of the screen, that is the podium. That is down in Sydney, where we are standing by for an update on that shooting in Bondi Beach. In the meantime, we're going to head out to Hollywood now, and it's more heavy news, unfortunately, and this time we're talking about Hollywood legend Rob Reiner, because it's been just about 24 hours since the news broke that the legendary director and actor, along with his wife, had been found dead in their Los Angeles area home. Tonight, their 32-year-old son, Nick, is in custody in connection with their deaths. Now, so far, there's no word on what charges he will face. However, he is being held without bond. Nick and Rob Reiner had a complicated relationship. You may have seen some of the stories out there so far. Nick Reiner had done several stints in rehab. He had spent a period of time homeless. However, the two seemed to mend their relationship while working on the 2016 movie called Being Charlie. It was a semi-autobiographical movie based on Nick's life and relationship with his family. And while the investigation into what happened continues, fans, friends, and co-stars have flooded social media with tributes. Rob Reiner's career, you're looking at some of it right there. We just saw, we'll get to all of these because there are so many, there are almost too many to name, but his career began as an actor and director. It spanned 5 decades. His role as Meathead in All in the Family propelled him to stardom. He continued to act until his death. But it was his career behind the camera that really cemented his legacy, and that's what I want to talk. Oh, you know what, Tony? We'll come back to this, but right now,
good call.
It looks like that press conference is getting underway. Let's take you there live.
Come around the other side. Okay, appreciate you all being here. I'm joined, of course, with the Prime Minister, Commissioner Lanyon, Commissioner Barrett, the Minister for Mental Health, Rose Jackson, the Chief Psychiatrist, and the Minister for Police. Obviously, we'll give an update on the latest in relation to the investigation and related matters. I want to make it clear, after speaking with the Prime Minister and the National Cabinet, as well as the New South Wales Cabinet, that our response to this horrifying tragedy must be comprehensive and has begun already. Our approach to this terrible crime in New South Wales is multifaceted, but I want to make it clear that our efforts to firstly work with the New South Wales Police on counter-terrorism efforts continue. Secondly, fighting anti-Semitism in our community, which will not be done in a week or a month, but it's a long-term important project for the Government of New South Wales, working with civic leaders and the people of this state. Thirdly, gun law reform in New South Wales, with legislation brought into the New South Wales Parliament to make gun laws tougher in this state. I'm determined to bring in the toughest gun laws in Australia, and they'll be significantly tightened in New South Wales. And lastly and importantly, and this has been reflected from civic leaders, community leaders across this state, bringing New South Wales together as a time of healing. I saw on the news some of the rabbis who gave some incredible heartfelt messages to the New South Wales community about coming together, showing love to one another, and getting through this through healing. And I thought that they were incredibly important messages right now in New South Wales, messages that we all need to hear. I'm very grateful for their intervention. I want to speak a little bit about blood donations too. I'm very happy to report that there has been 50,000 appointments to give blood in New South Wales, which I understand is a 5-fold increase. Say to the people of New South Wales, don't give up. If you haven't got an appointment, if you can't get in immediately, we require your blood. Be a blood donor in New South Wales. To put this in perspective, for somebody in trauma, they may need 100 individual donations to save their life. So this is an urgent priority. Don't give up if you're at the end of the line. Make an appointment. Do a wonderful bit of civic and public duty. I'm also here to report that small business help will be forthcoming in the next 24 hours, or will announce a program in the next 24 hours for small businesses in the Bondi area. We know there's huge disruption associated with this huge police investigation. There's been an impact on the local community, and part of our job after this investigation moves on is to ensure that we lift back up the Bondi community and we give people a place to come together and to return to a semblance of normal life. I want to make it clear, none of the shopkeepers, none of them have complained about this at all, but we want to have their back as they open their doors in the coming days. There's lots to say. I just want to thank the public, in particular the Jewish community and interfaith leaders, for their warm support in the government's decision to put a menorah on the New South Wales Opera House to celebrate the second day of Hanukkah. This has been a tragic event for the Jewish community of New South Wales and Australia, but we're determined to meet it head on with a program and a set of reforms to ensure that we do everything we possibly can to ensure that it's not repeated. I'm going to pass over to the Prime Minister and then Commissioner Lanyon.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. My message to Jewish Australians is that we stand with you as a nation. We embrace you at what is a terrible time. These anti-Semitic terrorist attacks will not be successful with their objective, which is to divide us as a nation. We will continue to come together as a nation and to embrace each other. Earlier today, I met with Australian hero Ahmed Ahmed and his family. I met his mum and dad, who are visiting him here, as well as other relatives at St George Hospital. I thanked him for the lives that he helped to save, and I wished him all the very best with his surgery that he will undertake tomorrow, and I was able to also thank the health professionals, the doctors, nurses and staff at St George Hospital for providing support for him. Sunday's tragedy will have, of course, an immediate and lasting impact on many Australians, but the Jewish community here in Sydney and nationally, first responders and people in Bondi and Sydney, the impact will be particularly acute. The Australian government has made significant investments in mental health support, including expanding headspace and the creation of Medicare mental health centres. And I encourage all Australians affected by this tragedy to consider accessing the mental health support, including through Beyond Blue on 1300 22 4636, Lifeline on 131114, Kids Helpline on 1800 55 1800. Headspace for children and young people and Medicare mental health centres are of course available to support people affected by this tragedy. Yesterday I convened National Cabinet where National Cabinet again spoke about the scourge of anti-Semitism and the commitment to stamp it out. We also agreed that Premier Minns and Premier Cook, as the incoming chair of the Council of Australian Federation, would work together to strengthen Australia's gun laws. The very nature of our gun laws means that they are only as strong as the weakest link, which is why we wanted to make sure that they followed Premier Minns' lead in committing to strengthening the gun laws that were of course created in the wake of the Port Arthur tragedy some 30 years ago. To give credit to the Howard government of that time and the bipartisan nature in which it was adopted. The consideration that will take place includes limiting the number of guns an individual can own, the type of guns that are legal, whether gun ownership should require Australian citizenship, and accelerating work on the National Firearms Register. This is an agreement that we reached through the National Cabinet at the end of 2023. We've provided over $160 million to do that. Included in that is over $100 million to states and territories. It is a fact that for some states and territories they still have paper records, and that obviously makes it impossible to check across boundaries in a quick and efficient manner. And the digitisation that is required, we've agreed to accelerate that. We will continue to engage, and this afternoon I'll have further meetings, another meeting of the National Security Committee, further meetings this afternoon. My government is absolutely committed to working with New South Wales, as well as working with community organisations, particularly Jewish community organisations at this time. I'll call upon the Commissioner Barrett to make some comments before we go to questions. Commissioner Lanyon first.
Thanks, Prime Minister. I'll start first. Just like to give an update. Our two parallel investigations are ongoing. We have a critical incident investigation which investigates the role of police in the matter, and certainly in terms of the death of the 50-year-old male and the injury to the 24-year-old male. Whilst that's continuing, we have a joint counter-terrorism operation running at the same time, and I welcome my fellow Commissioner, Commissioner Barrett, here from the AFP, who talked about that this morning. There is still a crime scene in place in Campbell Parade and down around Bondi Beach. I anticipate that will stay in place until tomorrow afternoon, where it will be released to the public. We continue with forensic and ballistic examinations. I've made it really clear in previous conferences that this will be a thorough investigation. I apologise for the disruptions to pedestrians and traffic while that crime scene is in place, but I'm sure all of the community understands the importance of investigating this abhorrent matter. The Community Reception Centre has been open and activated at the Intercontinental Hotel at Coogee. That will provide health support to people who require it, mental health support, but also allows us to speak to those who are witnesses to this incident and treat them sensitively. The Public Information and Inquiry Centre is operating. That number is 1800 227 228. It's been really important to give our investigators in the Joint Counter-Terrorism space time to investigate this matter before releasing too much information. There has been reports in the news about our two offenders travelling to the Philippines last month. I can confirm that they did travel to the Philippines. The reasons why they went to the Philippines and the purpose of that and where they went when they were there is under investigation at the moment. I also confirmed that the vehicle which is registered to the younger male contained IEDs, but I also confirmed that it contained 2 homemade ISIS flags. We continue to work through the motive of this tragedy, and we'll continue to do so. And I think it's really important that our investigators continue to be given time to do that. This is a very complex investigation, and important that we do it thoroughly. Operation Shelter ramped up yesterday. We have static patrols or static guards at a range of locations around the eastern suburbs, particularly Jewish places of worship and other important locations for the Jewish community. In addition to that, we have mobile patrols, and I want to make it very clear to the Jewish community, as we did to their leaders yesterday, that the New South Wales Police stands right beside you. We are here to keep you safe. I want the community to feel safe and be able to go around their way of life. New South Wales Police will maintain a significant response in Operation Shelter to ensure that the community can go about their normal way of life. I would like to correct a record. I have been indicating that Sajid Akram, the 50-year-old male, has held a firearms licence since 2015. Mr Akram applied for that licence on the 8th of October 2015, and it was recommended that it be issued in November 2015. I'm advised that he did not get a photo taken as required by that licence, and the application lapsed in 2016. A second Category AB licence was applied for by Mr Akram in 2020. That licence was recommended for issue and issued in 2023. I think it's important that the transparent nature of the investigation provides that change. The initial information had been that it had been issued in 2015, and I think it's important to give that detail. He was licensed to hold a Category AB licence, and the firearms that we have seized were attached to that licence appropriately. I'll hand over now to Commissioner Barrett, but happy to take some questions later.
Good afternoon. Last night with Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke, I had the chance to lay a wreath at Bondi Beach after immediately returning from an overseas work matter. Between the time of this attack and until I landed back in Australia, I have had regular contact with the Prime Minister, with Minister Burke, with New South Wales Police Commissioner Lanyon, and with the AFP's Counter-Terrorism and Special Investigations Command, as well as senior Jewish leaders. These are my first public comments on the terrorist attack since I have returned to Australia. And I want to describe this attack in my own words so there is no confusion and no ambiguity about the AFP's position. This was a barbaric attack against Jewish Australians. On Sunday, Jewish Australians were hunted down in broad daylight at an iconic Australian beach. The suspected murderers, callous in how they allegedly coordinated their attack, appear to have had no regard for the age or ableness of their victims. It appears the alleged killers were interested only in a quest for a death tally. Like October 7, 2023, we will not forget how that shocking attack forced Jews around the world to relive modern-day terror that should have been consigned to the history books decades ago. In Australia, the AFP will never forget the date of December 14 and what it means for a community that deserves to live in peace and harmony. It is understandable and right that the community wants answers, and it is appropriate that the AFP and New South Wales Police provide this information, not only to provide answers to a community that is in shock and grieving, but also to protect how we live together safely in multicultural Australia, including calling out misinformation that could fuel retribution-type incidents. Because of these factors, we will provide information that does not impact on our investigation, noting that one alleged offender remains in hospital and is facing significant charges. Early indications point to a terrorist attack inspired by Islamic State, allegedly committed by father and son. There is no evidence to suggest other individuals were involved in this attack. However, we caution that this could change given it is early in our investigation. Alleged evidence has provided investigators with a swathe of information that has enabled them to make this initial assessment about the alleged individuals involved and their motivations. These are the alleged actions of those who have aligned themselves with a terrorist organisation, not a religion. The New South Wales Joint Counter-Terrorism Team, which includes the AFP, New South Wales Police, ASIO and the New South Wales Crime Commission, is continuing to review the significant material seized during search warrants, and we will not provide further details of that material today for obvious reasons. The AFP and New South Wales Police have a responsibility to keep the community safe. And I want to thank Commissioner Lanyon for his steel-like leadership during this time, and also acknowledge the brave men and women of New South Wales Police who have shown courage, amazing courage, in the face of cowards. Now, we understand words and information are important for context and for comfort. However, we are very much focused on action, including conducting a thorough investigation. This investigation will be highly visible, precise, and it will operate around the clock. The New South Wales Joint Counter-Terrorism Team investigation will leverage all unique powers, capabilities and international networks. Thank you.
Well, Commissioners, where and with whom did the Akrams carry out their militant training in the Philippines, and when did Australian authorities first have intelligence about that training?
I think we've been fairly clear that the reason that the Akrams travelled to the Philippines, where they went, is unknown at this stage and subject to the investigation.
Do you believe that any of their associates had prior knowledge of the attack?
Sorry, can you
Do you
repeat?
believe that any of their associates had prior knowledge of the attack?
That's obviously part of the investigation. We've been fairly clear that we believe that there were 2 people involved in this cowardly attack. We continue to investigate the matter thoroughly to determine if there's anyone else involved.
Did the trip to the Philippines trigger any security alert in Australia? And if not, was that an intelligence failure?
Not that I'm aware of, and I don't believe it was an intelligence failure at all. We're talking about something that's retrospective, post what is an horrific crime. We've indicated this will be a thorough investigation. Both New South Wales Police and the AFP are committed to that. We are finding information post the event.
But given David Akram's long-standing ties to extremists in Australia, why did his father receive a firearms licence, and why were they allowed to travel overseas in this way?
The issue of the firearms licence is something that I've addressed previously and something that is subject of investigation. The Firearms Act has certain requirements. Mr Akram was entitled to make an application. The information that was available at the time was used to assess that information, and a licence was issued.
Commissioner, Bondi survivor Shmulek Skoury told the 7 Network this morning he saw 4 police officers at the scene in Bondi, none of them fired a weapon, and he was saying he didn't understand why he's an Israeli national. To Mr Skoury, what do you say to him that the police didn't do their job and fire back at that gunman?
I can't comment in relation to that actual report. What I'll say is that I'm incredibly proud of our police officers. They were confronted by 2 men armed with long arms. Our police at the scene were armed with pistols.
Regarding the timeline of that, can you just outline when did the first police officer arrive at the scene?
I don't have that timeline in front of me. That's obviously part of the investigation. I've been really clear. Both the critical incident investigation and the JCTT investigation will be thorough.
Commissioner Barrett, we haven't heard from Commissioner Barrett before about how would you describe the adequacy of police presence at Bondi, and can you and Commissioner Lanyon explain why local area command was considered sufficient security for that event? Commissioner Lanyon, you just observed that they only had pistols. Is that all that they had, and why were there not more police resources there? This is a police force that has access to Bearcat armoured vehicles, for instance. Why were there not more resources there?
I'll let Commissioner Lanyon answer that question, given it relates to New South Wales.
I'll reiterate, that is subject to the investigation at the moment. We base our policing response on the threat that exists at the time. A lot of work is done between ourselves and the Jewish community. Obviously, Bondi Beach is a large and public area. We regularly patrol that area, as we did on that day.
Commissioner, how many police were at the festival? How many police were at the festival?
I've said previously that they received taskings to go to the Bondi Beach, so there were police moving through there at all times.
Commissioner, how many were at the scene?
I can't tell you at any particular time. As I said, they received taskings.
But Commissioner,
so we had police moving through the area regularly.
But Commissioner, were there 2 officers posted there for the festival? And were those 2 officers the ones that were wounded?
I don't have that information for you at the moment, Damien. What I'll say is we had an appropriate policing response to ensure that police were moving through there, working closely with the community. We take safety very seriously, and I think you've seen that from the New South Wales Police. We are here to support the community. We're here to keep the community safe. Had there been intelligence that there was a particular threat at that location or to that event, we may have had a different policing response.
Well, were they the ones patrolling? Were they the ones that were in the vicinity?
Or
were they first responders?
Well, there was a large number of police responding there at the moment. I don't want to give information about that whilst the critical incident investigation.
Sorry, I feel it's incredibly important of me as the Premier of New South Wales to respond to some of these questions. The New South Wales Police acted with bravery and integrity. They didn't take a backward step. They engaged the gunman on the footbridge with handguns. The offenders had long-range rifles, and New South Wales police officers were responsible for killing one of them and shooting the other one, and as a result, saving many, many people's lives. Now, there are 2 officers in critical care in New South Wales hospitals at the moment. They weren't shot in the back as they were running away, they were shot in the front. I'm sorry to be graphic about it, but if there's any suggestion that New South Wales Police didn't live up to their responsibilities to the people of this state, it should be rejected because it's not consistent with the facts. New South Wales police officers, some of whom had been in the job for a number of months, put their lives on the line to save people in this state. And I think this rush to conclusions before all the facts are known, in my view, is disrespectful to their actions on Sunday.
Premier, how many police were stationed?
No, I'm sorry, but I do have a responsibility.
How many police were stationed there? Was it a failure of staffing?
I don't think there's any doubt that if we had our time again, of course we would do things differently. And part of our response with the Jewish community and the people of New South Wales through Operation Shelter, working closely with the CSG, who are responsible for security in the Jewish community, is to ensure that we can work with them in the future. I can't take back Sunday, nobody can. But what we can do is ensure that in the future we are putting security in place so that we rebuild trust with the Jewish community. I know that this is an existential threat to some members of the Jewish community because this was a targeted attack on members of the Jewish community. I know in many cases, I saw Rabbi Wolf speak passionately about being more Jewish, refusing to hide. I thought that was such a brave and important message to send to the people of Australia and New South Wales. But we have to work with them and walk with them on that journey. Hang on a second, and it's an urgent priority to rebuild Jewish social life in this state.
Premier, we've just learned that a gun licence. We've just learned that a gun licence for Sajid Akram was granted in 2023 after his son authorities became aware of his son. Was it then a failure of intelligence that the New South Wales Police Firearms Registry in England grant those licences did not know that his son, with whom he lived, was at one stage under the investigation base?
Look, it's too early to say or make a pronouncement in relation to that. But one aspect of gun law reform that is absolutely essential in New South Wales, and it will be controversial, is for police to use criminal intelligence, not just a criminal record, in determining whether someone should keep a gun licence or even be granted a gun licence in the state. And what I'm trying to say is, if we can craft a law that the police commissioner can say, I've got concerns about this person, I don't want them having access to a gun, notwithstanding the fact that they don't have a criminal record, that's the kind of legislation that we want to see.
Prime Minister Naveed Akram reportedly links to Islamic State through connections he made as a follower of jihadist preacher Wissam Hanna. Is radical Islam a problem, and how can hate preaching still be allowed?
Well, what we know already is, as part of the investigation, is it goes to motive, and what is being investigated, as the Commissioner has said, is that it would appear that there is evidence that this was inspired by a terrorist organisation, by ISIS. Now, some of the evidence which is being procured, including the presence of Islamic State flags in the vehicle that has been seized, are a part of that. Radical perversion of Islam is absolutely a problem. It is something that has been identified globally as a problem as well. ISIS is created by an evil ideology that has been called out, not just by the Australian government, but globally as well.
What are you doing right now to clamp down on hate preaching? What are you doing right now, what are you doing right now to combat hate preaching, to crack down on hate preaching?
Yeah, we have passed legislation to outlaw hate speech. The first government to do so, to put in place those laws as part of our response to anti-Semitism.
Can you just confirm there's been a lot of misinformation flying around about the student visa that Tony Burke mentioned yesterday? Can you confirm the country of origin, whether it's India or Pakistan, and also how long were they in the Philippines, and was that monitored by Filipino intelligence agencies?
They are all part of the investigation, so I can't go into that detail, and it wouldn't be appropriate to undermine the the investigation by going into
All right, you've been listening to an update on the shooting that occurred at Bondi Beach during a Hanukkah celebration over the weekend. We got a couple new updates, not only about plans for gun control in New South Wales, in Australia, in response to the violence that occurred, but we also got a few new details about the suspects, their possible motive, and where the investigation stands so far, Tony B.
Yep, absolutely. So just to kind of off the top, so Premier Mills of New South Wales talked about the actions that are being taken inside of New South Wales at the moment. A menorah, of course, being on the Opera House as of tonight. New programs being established with the Jewish community to combat anti-Semitism. Blood donations from the community are up fivefold. Small businesses are helping out. Will open soon once the crime scene at Bondi Beach, which is supposed to open to the public tomorrow, again, Australian time, so that'd be kind of a little bit behind for us. Again, I can't get all the time with the numbers. But, and again, the new gun laws are not only going to be at the national level. They have states in Australia similar to what you have in the United States. New South Wales will be taking the lead on those gun laws first, and then it will go to the Australian government, the Albanese government first.
And they talked about limiting the type and number of guns that people can own, and also only citizens owning guns. They were two of the things they mentioned at first, but then right before we came back, Tony, they also mentioned
so they mentioned
something
about
else.
So not just looking at the criminal record or criminal history of a potential buyer or someone who has a gun at the moment. The national government and New South Wales is thinking about adding to this legislation having criminal intelligence. So potentially, if there are reasons that this person may engage in harmful activities, the government could take that gun from them even if they're not charged. So it's the distinction between criminal record, where it's documented they committed a crime, versus criminal suspicion. So those types, just to kind of give a U.S. legal term, if there's suspicion or analysis or someone's turned in for a mental health violation or something of that nature, or they engage potentially in hate speech, because again, there's hate speech laws in Australia as Prime Minister Albanese noted. So if there's violations of those type of situations, and if there's criminal intelligence that a person may engage in activity, the government could take that weapon or suspend that license. That's part of the potential legislation at the New South Wales state level, as well as the federal level.
They also talked about spending money to update their records, modernize and digitize. They said some of them are still paper records. They also talked a little bit about what they've discovered over the course of the investigation, including the suspects traveling to the Philippines. They also talked about the car they traveled to Bondi Beach in and what was inside of it, including IEDs and other weapons. We also learned about their possible motive. They said they suspect Islamic terror and
inspired by the Islamic State, ISIS.
Islamic State. They said there are no other suspects so far. You also heard some questions about the police response. We heard the Prime Minister. We also heard the Premier
Mills
defending the police response, noting that 2 officers were injured, not shot in the back, running away from the scene, but shot in the front, running towards the scene.
Yes, and he also noted that the suspects had long rifles and that the policing force only had pistols, and they still engaged right when they got to the scene. Now, there's also a follow-up question to that where, should they have longer rifles because they have access to armored tanks?
Should they have more police on hand for the event? Obviously, they said they're stepping up security and working with their Jewish partners in the community for what comes next. Of course, we'll have much more on this story as it develops. We will keep an eye on all of that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about some news happening a little closer to home, especially for all the Commanders fans out there. You're watching the Live Zone Primetime. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back to the Live Zone Primetime. It is Monday night. Little Monday Night Football, shall we talk now?
Yes,
all right,
absolutely.
as we approach 9:50. Jaden Daniels, number 5, you see him right there. The Commanders still have 3 games to go, but that man's season is officially over, despite the fact that they won yesterday, despite the fact that they said he hadn't re-injured, suffered any structural damage to that left elbow when he left the game against the Vikings last Sunday. Coach Quinn announced today that he will not be back on the field this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very, very smart move, and it's a move that I talked about for the last 5-6 weeks that he should have been shut down after the second or third injury. So I think it's good. I think we got to win. So
and
you know what?
I don't necessarily agree with you, but this is really one of those. This really feels like one of those damned if you do and damned if you don't.
I don't think you're
situations.
damned if you do. I think you put it again. It's only 3 games left. What are they going to learn in these 3 games?
Well, that's a great question. So let's go right
Exactly.
to
We're gonna learn a lot
our friend,
tonight.
award-winning sports reporter Kelsey Nicole Nelson, for what she thinks, whether they did the right thing and whether they did the wrong thing. Thanks so much for joining us once again, Kelsey.
Of course. Thank you for having me. And thank you for allowing me to be the tiebreaker, in this one. Chris, I have one for you, but I am going to have to side with Tony P on this one.
Yeah, baby.
So Jaden Daniels.
I knew you were awesome.
Chris is right on a lot of things, but on this one,
Yes.
I have to.
We are
for him.
simpatico.
So me and Tony P are
Yes.
here.
Good, same
I think Tony
wavelength.
P set it up. He set it up perfectly. Like, look, Chris, you have 3 games, right? You have 3 divisional games left.
3 divisional games.
But the Cowboys have a 1% chance of making the playoffs, which essentially means bye-bye, right, to Dallas Cowboys. You have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are about a game away from clinching, right, the NFC East division, which means really that last game when the Commanders play them, they're really not going to be playing their starters, right? They're going to be obviously preparing for the playoffs. So you're looking at Jaden. If you put him in, and let's remember, folks, he already hurt his hamstring this season, his left elbow, as well as his knee, right? We're trying to protect Jaden Daniels in the body, and he still will be learning from the sidelines, if you want to consider that a thing, right? Watching Marcus Mariota, and I do think that's still an important part. But I think the Commanders just have only forward to look ahead to, right? I think this was a debate a couple weeks ago, even in Week 14 when he re-aggravated that elbow injury. But now you're looking at it. Yes, they beat the Giants, but you can look at the New York Football Giants. I think you can tell from the stands how big of a game, was that?
Us
Was
could
for
beat the Giants.
Was for morale. Yes. But what else can Jaden do? I mean, like the Commanders at this point, they're honestly looking at the free agents, right? You need to see who needs to stay part of this team. Adam Peters, I think it's also a pivotal year for him and Dan Quinn, right? As we look to kind of year 3 of their tenure together as we look ahead to next season. So, Jaden, I think we only went up for him, after such a amazing season. But right now, the Commanders are just playing for pride, folks. And that's for the Commanders fans who know how important those divisional games are, especially since we get a Christmas Day game, fellas, right?
That's right,
that's
we
when
do.
you don't want to.
Yeah, I hear everything that you're saying. I do. but at this point then,
Do tell.
should they not just sit all of their healthy starters and just evaluate all those other players that they could see whether they deserve to make the squad next year, or play for that draft pick? Because there are fans who want them to tank. And obviously that mindset is not what Dan Quinn has brought, the culture he's brought to this team. But if you're throwing in the towel on your franchise quarterback and not going to give him the reps necessarily, even if he's healthy, then what case is there for any other player out there, for a Terry McLaurin who has not been 100% since training camp, to go out there and put his body on the line?
Yeah, so I think let's remember how this decision was made. So we know Adam Peters and Dan Quinn spoke both to Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota about this decision. But I think the biggest thing folks need to remember is that Jaden Daniels was not cleared, right? Which essentially means that he was not going to be able to go on Saturday, which means why bring him back kind of on a short week, even if he was cleared to risk that injury. And then the other important thing to notice is that the Commanders are not putting Jaden Daniels on IR, which does mean he can still practice. So for those folks that are saying, reps means reps. And yes, I know this means he's only going to get practice reps. I do think that is still good for him to obviously continue to get synergy with some of these guys, to still be in those meetings, to still learn from the veterans. And yes, Chris, I hear you. And I think we will see that. But again, there's a lot of guys right now, especially remember this Commanders team being older. There's a lot of guys not just playing to keep a roster spot on the Commanders. There's a lot of guys keeping, trying to play to keep a spot in the National Football League, right? It's very competitive. We know the talent coming out. I was just at the Heisman ceremony this weekend in New York, and you want to know the top question being asked to the quarterbacks at the Heisman? It was, hey, how do you guys feel about playing for a New York team? Because already New York is the New York team.
Both of them.
Especially the Jets. The Jets, right? The Jets especially are looking for a quarterback. So football is a next man up league. You have to protect your spot. And so I think right now, the Commanders still want to win. Let's put that out there, right? The players still have something to play for. They know the fans are paying their hard-earned money to come watch those games. And it is still a divisional game. If you know about the NFC East, you still want to win those. But at the same time, again, why risk further injury to Jaden Daniels if you don't have to, if he truly is the future of this franchise? And I would tell Commanders fans, look what happened to the Arizona Cardinals and Kyler Murray, right? He gets hurt in week 5. We haven't seen him on the football field since. They said, hey, you know what? We're not going to bring him back in this season. And now some folks are talking about his future in Arizona, right? And I mean, Kyler Murray, obviously much more further along than Jaden Daniels, but there's a lot of questions being asked about quarterbacks. We talked about it last time, fellas, with the Indianapolis Colts. And now we saw Phillip Rivers,
that was quite the scene.
To victory. The Commanders don't want to be there. So again, I think they're playing the safe card. Essentially, the season is over. So now you're just, you're playing again for the guys to really see what they can do, right? We just saw Jalen Lane, be able, I think, to make a mark for himself. Krosky Merritt, who people have also been talking about. So I think this is a chance for the young guys to really shine and show really their value. And if they, have the stamina and what it takes to play with a hopefully healthy Jaden Daniels come next season.
Now, when talking about Coach Quinn and the entire team as they go into these final 3 games, they potentially win them all 3, they go to 7-10. If not, they're 4-13, right? So what are some of the considerations that are being made inside the locker room in terms of play calling? What are they emphasizing? Do they want to get better on offense or try new things that way? Or is it more about trying to fortify that defense and trying those new things out because Dan Quinn's coaching it now and because that's been just an Achilles heel the last year?
Oh, I'm glad you set me up so perfectly, Tony P. The big thing I'm hearing, from both out of Washington and from other NFL analysts, a lot of people are talking about using that draft pick to potentially in Washington bring on an edge rusher for the Washington Commanders. The defense has been a big topic of conversation. We have talked about it on the show, Dan Quinn taking over the defensive play calling duties. That is for a reason. And also an older defense, right? You got to get some young guys on this football field. So I think a lot of people are hoping that the Commanders use it for that. On the offensive side of the football, again, how can you make Jaden Daniels his best and greatest? Again, we saw Zach Ertz go down. He was the second leading receiver on that team before he went down. No, I think in the tight end spot, you have some young studs who can step up. But again, I think my biggest problem with the Commanders is the defense and how they can improve there. And in a league where defense truly does matter, where we saw the team next door to the Washington Commanders, the Baltimore Ravens, just pitched Cincinnati Bengals a shutout, right, with the Joe Burrow, who just a week ago, so many of us were talking about. Defense really does still matter in the National Football League. So I think that's where the Commanders want to get stronger. But then, of course, for Jaden, it's just going to be continuing to keep stride, right? With the wide receiver room, I think that we need to keep an eye on in Washington. Like, you just got to have good receivers now in the National Football
League. Not just one.
Right, not just one. And yes, to Chris's point, Terry will have to step it up. But I think, again, when he's fully healthy and just fully back in rink and, in rhythm and sync with Jaden Daniels, I don't see how that cannot happen.
Okay, I know it's we're down to our final 90 seconds, but I know, and it's an impossible question to answer. I know that, but injuries aside, did you get to see any sort of development with Jaden Daniels this season whatsoever?
Oh, that's a good one. Honestly, I think the jury's still in the air. I'm in the middle. Like, I feel like I already knew what he could do. I think when he got re-injured, I think one of the things I hated for it is that I think we saw the issue we had when he was drafted. He has to protect himself, and we always had an issue with him, like sliding and trying to be the heroic role, and we saw that once again. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I fully saw steps forward, but at the same time, we didn't see regression, Chris. So I'm not mad at that. If anything, you don't want a quarterback to take steps backward, right? We had the conversation with CJ Stroud and some other guys. So all that to say, folks, like, I'm still believing in JD5. And I think, we have to look ahead again to the future. This was a down year. We all know that, Washington fans. But I don't think Jaden Daniels is a competitor at the end of the day. He wants to win. This team wants to win. And I do think there's a bright spot in the nation's capital.
Keep hope alive. All right. Commanders fans, unfortunately, used to some losing seasons.
Yeah.
Kelsey Nicole Nelson, thank you so much for spending some time with us. Thank you for your patience
Yes,
as well.
thank you, Kelsey.
And we can't wait to talk to you
Thank you,
again
Paul.
and see what comes next.
Yes,
All
hopefully
right.
positive football news.
Thinking
at some
positive.
point.
All right, it's been a busy night, Tony P. Thank you so much
Yep.
for joining us. Thanks
Thank
to
you for
everyone
sticking
out
with
there
us.
for sticking with us. Fox 5 News at 10 coming your way next. We're going to leave you with a live picture from Oxon Hill.